I think we even teach, like, if you get a no, chances are you haven't helped them paint a picture of a vision that is actually worth investing your rate
Sure.
into. And so that, which sometimes can change the narrative of like, oh gosh, they don't think I'm worth it. And it's like, no, they don't think their vision is worth that.
This is On Coaching, a show from the Beyond High Performance podcast brought to you by the Meta Performance Institute for Coaching and Novus Global. I'm Joseph Thompson, Vice President of Innovation at the Meta Performance Institute. In On Coaching, we pull back the curtain on the craft by interviewing some of the most successful and accomplished executive and transformational coaches practicing today. You'll catch coaching tips and tricks and real-time learnings from some of the world's best coaches, along with a passion for this craft that we've dedicated our lives to. We talk shop, we share the unfiltered realities, and explore how the best keep growing to help others go beyond high performance.
By some estimations, over 80% of coaches are struggling right now to raise their rates and feel totally lost in how to confidently articulate their value to the marketplace. They often find themselves trapped in a cycle of undercharging and constant client acquisition. So what's truly at stake when exceptional coaching is undervalued? And why does understanding this dynamic matter now more than ever? My name is Joseph King Barkley. I get to serve as the president of the Meta Performance Institute, and I'm also an executive coach in Novus Global. In today's episode of On Coaching, we explore the critical mindsets that differentiate premium coaches from commodity coaches. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues in Novus Global, Kristin Frade and Shauna Barnes. With our collective experience advising hundreds of leaders and coaches just like you, we'll unpack the quote-unquote good reasons many coaches inadvertently find themselves in a race to the bottom, a race they really don't want to win. We'll dive deep into the way of being of a truly premium coach, how to fundamentally shift your thinking to charge for value instead of time, and why it's essential to stop training the world to treat you like a vendor. Welcome to the On Coaching podcast. My name is Joseph King Barkley. I get to serve as the president of the Meta Performance Institute, and I'm also an executive coach within Novus Global. I am joined today by two of my colleagues, Shauna Barnes and Kristin Frade. Today we're going to be diving into some of the concepts that you can also find in an email course that you can get for free called the Premium Coach Roadmap. And it's a map that challenges some of the conventional wisdom in our industry. And we are here to share our insights and our experience on our own coaching journeys and how we have found being a part of a community of premium coaches has been helpful for our vision and also created greater impact in the lives of our clients. We hope this is helpful for many of you. Where I think I'd like to start, Shauna and Kristin, is in this idea that we've been playing with a lot, and it's a race to the bottom. A lot of industries, not only coaching, compete on price. And it makes sense. You want to put out a quality product, you want to create some value, and then you want to be the cheapest available in the world. Coaching is no different. But we have found that often if we're competing in that race, it's a race that really nobody wants to win at the end of the day, or very few people want to win. It is a race that means that you're probably going to be negotiating how much your time is worth constantly. And the conversation is mostly about trade-off on time. And then also we're noticing that the way a client engages in that kind of a partnership is different than when they engage with us. I would love, just top of mind, some of your insights, some of the reasons someone might want to do a race to the bottom, and maybe some of the potential challenges if that's the race that you're running right now.
As far as reasons why, I mean, I can even remember feeling like this a little bit at the beginning of my coaching journey when I had my own coaching practice. Uh, I I would just always felt like I was in competition with other coaches, and so I'm really glad that that has changed because that was exhausting. Um, but yes, as I would meet other coaches, it's like, okay, like we're networking in the same spaces, or we have very similar ideal clients. And so what can I do to make someone choose me over them? And a lot of times it was, as far as prominent in my mind, well, price, I can be cheaper than them. And then I think a big pitfall that could happen from that is then you actually become resentful of the coaching space where it's like, gosh, like I should be charging more for this, or feeling like this isn't worth my time. Or I did often find, especially when I would even offer maybe pro bono coaching experiences for people so they could quote unquote test it out, they wouldn't take it seriously. And they maybe wouldn't show up, or they would, uh, you know, like dial it in versus really entering into the transformative experience that I wanted for them and with them. And so I know that those are some of the experiences I had, at least early on. And I still see many of many solopreneur coaches that I may know, or if they even come through our institute initially, I know those are some of the complaints that they may have, or some of the frustrations as well.
Yeah, I think about, the starting days, and I think about people that I trained with in my coach training program and just even some of my own journey. And some of it is, as it occurs to me, like people who are drawn to the work. Is it work that's available for everyone? So I remember in early days in my own training, it was like, be a coach who can coach anyone. And there is a beauty to that. Like, this is for any human. And so be someone that is available to coach anyone who's willing. Like that we had conversations about that. And so that willingness could be pro bono. That willingness could be, $20 an hour. So the idea of like, how do you see your commitment to the profession? And if it's one of giving back, if it's one of, hey, these are tools for all of humanity, then you might find that you are not thinking about this as a career, but you're thinking about this with a little bit of give back, volunteerism, and wouldn't be great if this could pay my bills. That's sort of like the third thought. So I think in the profession a little bit that I noticed that, and I noticed that a little bit in me as well. I wanted to give more sessions away. I wanted to be someone who could coach anyone. And I wasn't thinking so much about building a career and also thinking about what the value that got created through the coaching experience.
Yeah, a couple highlights in the comments you're both sharing is that oftentimes not to moralize it, but a good motivation might create a race to the bottom. So a good motivation might be I do want to be competitive in the marketplace, and one way to do that is to compete on price. Of course, lots of industries do that, and then another motivation that might drive a race to the bottom is I don't want anybody to be ruled out of this resource that I have. And so one technique to get there might be I want to sometimes if it occurs to me they can't pay anything, I want to be available for that person for this. And so maybe for our listeners, it's helpful to at first acknowledge that some really good ideas might get you in a race that you don't want to win. It starts from a interesting place. And so stick with that because there might be other ways that you can play that game that are more resourceful for you and for the people you serve. Kristin, you highlighted something that I notice happening in a lot of coaches' practices. I've done this before, which is sort of a generosity for the sake of creating a client that I find I over-index on. At least in my experience, I've over-indexed on I want to give away so much of my time and value in the hopes that this would turn into a powerful yes for them and for me. And I often find even that is its own resentment and discouragement because I've spent so much time and money giving away free sessions. I tried an experiment last year where I got on planes and I got in the room with people thinking that would become a really robust yes, and we're going to partner together. And then when it didn't, I felt dumb. And maybe speak to some of those swings if either of you have ever taken those things before where you notice like, oh, interesting, I might be devaluing myself in the marketplace by how I'm out there giving away so much.
Yeah, that's a good question. I do think that there is resource in experimenting with things, which I think you're speaking to as well. And I think that's one of the reasons too. It's helpful that we all have coaches. So I hope everyone listening also has a coach because you may need to get coached around your relationship to that. But I do. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
Well, maybe I'm the only one.
No, no, I do know that there have been times where it's like I would maybe host a free workshop and then they're like, "Oh, that was great." And then they're like, they'd go hire somebody else after that because it's somebody that they'd been talking to, or it sparks an idea and they'd hire maybe more of a consultant. Or there's times where I have maybe had a free conversation or two with somebody and shared a resource that's been helpful to me, and then they've gone and purchased that course from that conversation, the resource that I sent them. And so I'm like, well, you know, that maybe backfired a little bit as far as what my plan was. And that's when I just anchor back into what Shauna was talking about before of like, you know what, if that's what's going to serve them best right now, then, and I helped them do that, great. And then there's the part of me that's like, but I do actually need to pay my bills. And so then, it's a new data point for me in my experiments. But I do try and approach those types of experiments open-handed, as open-handed as possible, because I don't really know what's going to happen. Where sometimes it has led to clients that have been wonderful and really like fruitful relationships there. And then other times it's like, oh, that didn't quite go how I saw it going as I visioned this out. And created new data points from there as far as how I've crafted things in the future. But I've for sure had those moments.
And so have I. I mean, I'm also thinking about almost a distinction that's coming up in my mind now about, seeing yourself as a coach or someone in this space, and seeing yourself as an entrepreneur, and that you're building towards a business. And I think my own experience in the early days was, well, I'm a coach, so I am going to offer create IP and offer workshops, and like got really excited about training opportunities or things like that. And I wasn't necessarily looking at how could I scale that, or what would be my clear ask out of that. And so over time there's a little bit of like, oh, I'm putting a lot of effort here, and it isn't really creating the return that would allow this to be scalable. And so that's why for so long I didn't have coaching as a full-time role. It was like I had a full-time job that paid the bills, and then I had coaching, which was my passion and where I really, really wanted to grow. So as I'm, speaking in this moment and thinking about those that might be listening, I'm thinking about, do you see yourself as the entrepreneur for your business? And if you do, what are you then committed to creating financially? And then going after a strategy around how can you, yes, like you've both said, like experiment and take some swings and some risks, and also tighten up your strategy and see, is it creating the financial resource that a career would provide? And I think that sometimes, especially when you're doing it on your own, you might get lost in either the love of the chase, the love of the work, but not necessarily the love of building the business. A- And I think that if anyone's listening today and finding themselves exhausted by the swings, but wanting to have this as actually something that is generative in their life, I get curious about, hey, like, what's your business plan to become a sustainable coach in the industry?
That's so good, Shauna. Another comment I'll insert here that might be helpful for someone is the idea that what you win them with is what you win them to. And if you are winning them with the experience you're creating for them, is you are someone who will go the extra mile, and you will go to them. Almost, it could possibly create the impression that you are a vendor and you are at their beck and call. And that may not be the kind of foundation that you want to create with a coaching relationship. And it may be very difficult then to convert the partnership into something where you're inviting them to lift weight and inviting them to take risks and inviting them to put skin in the game, because it's beneficial for them to put something in that keeps their attention. And so that's another thing that's coming to mind for me when I think about the race to the bottom and how that might get us started on the wrong foot.
Well, you're having me think about, something that I think we've all talked about, which is, what is the skin in the game for the coachee? And I think sometimes at the beginning, especially early on, if I think about building my practice, I wanted people to have the experience of coaching, I wasn't vetting in early sessions, like, what's the skin in the game that you have for a new outcome in your life? And so then I think it can go back to that race to the bottom, because if the coachee isn't committed to creating value that has a certain investment connected to it, then right out of the gate, you might be creating a more of a commodified relationship with coaching versus a transformative opportunity to grow and invest in value creation versus an hour spent with someone.
That's great. I want to move into how someone may position themselves for their own benefit and the benefit of the world around them as what we would call a premium coach. And one of the hangups that we'll often encounter as people enter into this world is I'm not qualified. I've not created a client that's investing at that level. I've not been in those rooms before. I'm intimidated by it. So maybe one day I will earn the right to qualify for those kinds of partnerships on a money level, a complexity of organization level. It's not only about the money we're talking about. A premium coach is someone who may feel welcomed in any boardroom anywhere in the world, any leader of any level of complexity and scope of organization. And I understand if at first I have to use a framework that many of our listeners probably are familiar with, I have a do, have, be approach to this. Okay, what do I have to do to finally have some clients like that? And so finally I can be a premium coach. And it may at first feel like a strange little superstitious mind trick that we're doing, but how resourceful it is to start from the B. And I think our journey towards premium coaching most resourcefully begins and continues to be walked out from who you choose to be right now. And I do think that all of us, all three of us on this call, we have a vision for our own practices, and it's as proud as I think we all might be of where our practices are at this point. There is another level for us that now is inviting us into a new level of, okay, who do I get to be to create that thing? And I would love to, just from the hip, talk about the being of a premium coach, to walk around in the world as someone who creates that kind of value where larger levels of investment, leaders who have a lot of complexity under their responsibility, then are attracted to, drawn to. There's a way of being that we get to walk into the world, even if we have yet to have a premium coaching practice. I'd love for you to describe some of the ways of being that you've tried on as a premium coach.
Yeah, well, I actually still have a sticky note on my computer from Chris North, who is a colleague, and he had shared something early on in my time in the firm of a way of being he has adopted that has served him well, and it really stuck with me. And I think it fits here, but it's I need nothing from anyone. I have nothing to prove, and I'm here to serve. And so I think I shared this on our earlier podcast from, gosh, I don't even know, maybe 2 years ago at this point. But my mantra, as I was walking into rooms like that, where normally I'd be really nervous or like the imposter syndrome kicks in, like, oh gosh, what am I doing here? It would be just a simple, I belong here.
Like I did
Or
last
I
week.
think it's, I still use it as we do hit new levels of the video game is I belong here. I belong here. But then tying in what Chris shared has really served me as well, where it's like, I don't need anything from these people. I'm here to serve them. They are having people left and right pulling at them, wanting things from them. It's like, how can I actually be in service of them or to them? And we'll see what happens. If nothing happens, like, and I have served them well here, great. Then my mission is accomplished. And so having that open handedness essentially allowed me to let go of the neediness of, I really want a client though. Like, I really want a client from this room. And, funny enough, when I would anchor into that open handedness and letting go of the neediness is when the clients actually started to happen. I think because they could sense the genuineness of, like, I am here to help you and I'm not charging you per question. It's like, then they were able to actually experience the value of what I've either noticed or feedback I'd given them or a question that I maybe would ask that would shift something for them and that would stick with them. It might even not even happen right away as a client, but often in conversation or just being around them with that way of being, they'd remember something from that. So when it did come to where they were thinking of a coach or thinking of, hey, who could help me? It's like, hey, that conversation with Kristin was actually really helpful. I wonder what regular conversations with her could do for myself, my business, my life, etc. And so those have really served me at least.
Yeah, I love that, Kristen. I think one of the tremendous values of many of now being a part of a firm of coaches is that we get to have these conversations, as our practice grows and as we're more aware of how we're showing up. And I think for me, two things come to mind. One is anchoring into the forness for the room or the individual in front of me. So many individuals, and it's similar to what you said, Kristen, have people in their lives that just want things from them constantly. And so to actually sit down with one and actually have that energy, which is actually an energy I delight in. Now, I will throw my hand up and say I'm a recovering people pleaser. So it's like, I think on the healthy side of people pleasing is like, hey, I am really for you. And I've found ways to articulate that. And I've actually had feedback from clients that that's the experience, a genuine experience of forness. And here's what forness invites. This is the second part I would say is actually disruption. So actually a premier coach to me is also one that has such a forness and created such a trust in a relationship so that there can be disruption, so that people can be asked questions no one else is really willing to ask. I had a client today say to me, actually, he joked and he said, when I think about one of our first conversations where I asked him if I could give him some feedback, and I gave him some feedback about how he cursed to me, he said, we kind of laugh about that now. And he's a senior leader, number two in an organization. He's like, no one had ever given me that feedback. And that sits with me. Like that's the kind of conversation when I'm getting in a call with you, that's what I'm ready for. And so I think that's another aspect of a premium coach.
That's incredible. I notice that when I'm thinking about my qualification, I've made a subtle yet very significant shift, which is I am the resource and I have to shore up more resource so that I am worth it in the world. And the way we coach, and many, I'm sure many of our listeners also coach with the same modality, the same thinking, is I get to come in as someone who is inviting resource out of partnering with a client to discover how much resource they have in themselves and in the world around them. And it has very, very little to do with the resource that I have. It has more to do with the resource that I am to them. And that resource is of love, of disruption, like you said, Shauna, of intense curiosity. And yes, of course, there's a growing skill set that each of us get to as we give each other feedback and we are coached and we're in a community of coaches. There's an increase in your skill as a practitioner, but actually the increase in skill is I have more tools to mine. That's the increase of skill. It's not that I have more tools to dazzle that you would pay more for. That's a very different way of entering into the world. I think of other, this mindset shift for someone to step into what we call premium coach is also plays out in how we do things. So if we decide today, I'm a premium coach and there's not a person in the world I couldn't serve, there's not a person who wouldn't be served by some of this powerful inquiry. I imagine it shows up in your way of being and your executive presence and in how you carry yourself in a room and in activities that you see throughout your life. So I'm curious, top of mind for you when you really put on, I am a value creator. I belong in this room. I don't need anything from these people.
Let's be honest. Coaching is booming, and so is mediocrity. If your calendar's full but your bank account isn't, if you're undercharging, overgiving, and secretly hoping someone discovers you online, it's time to stop pretending. The Premium Coach Roadmap is a 5-day email course from the Meta Performance Institute that exposes the 5 mistakes turning good coaches into forgettable ones and how to flip that game entirely. Want dream clients who pay what you're worth? Go to mp.institute/premiumcoach to sign up today.
What are some ways it shows up on a very practical level in things that you play with and what you do?
I think similar to what you said a moment ago, to me, it actually has the resource of the client be what's more crystallized versus knowledge of what I know or don't know about the industry or the players in the room. And I think, I see this in our industry is that sometimes there's like a, an entanglement between a coach being someone who is an industry expert and could coach on best practices in an industry, and a coach that's looking to work with someone on transformative leadership, mindset change. Um, Not so much the skill of an industry, but actually of a who are you as a leader and what are you committed to? So part of the play for me over time has continued to be anchored into how am I self managing myself so that the room, the client is really the resource. And I'm just not saying, but that's my laser focus. And when I start to get distracted, maybe about, I was in a, a recent, I don't know, 15th floor, probably one of the most beautiful boardrooms. I was with some colleagues. They walked in, they've been in many boards. There's like, wow, this is quite a good one, and instead of kind of getting distracted about the painted faces on the wall and who was about to walk in, it was really the moment of seeing the people across the table from us. And all of, to be honest, all of that, the beauty of that room to me just went away as soon as our potential clients came in. So I say that because it's actually, it might sound easy. It's been a real process for me to learn that. It's required self-management, it's required heightened curiosity. It's required a sense of peace within me, like, "Hey, just here, trust the client, trust the room, and then see that as your resource to build from."
Yeah, I'd have similar experiences where it's like a relaxed version of me where I'm not coming in with a prove it energy. And I'm not, when I'm anchored to that premium coach way of being, it is, I'm not in my head of like, okay, what's the thing I need to say next? Or what, Joseph, to your point, like what tool can I pull out here to dazzle them with my knowledge? Like all of that is gone to where I'm relaxed into who I am and anchored into what I do know I bring to the table, to where I can tap into everything Shauna just said of like, I'm listening well. It's level 3 listening. I'm noticing things in the room that would not notice if I was in my head about things, or I would not notice if I was distracted by what I need to say next versus what are they actually saying? What are they not saying? What's happening here that they're not talking about? What's the unhad conversation? What's their body language? Like I'm literally watching a story unfold in front of me that I can hold all the pieces of together when I am really focusing on them, the value that they can create and what we want for them. So that's been a big shift, I've noticed over time. And same thing to Shauna's point is that was not something that happened overnight. And it took some time and growth for sure to get there. And I think that even leveraging each other has been really helpful in a lot of spaces like that.
That's good. Last thing I'll say on this that is coming up is the feedback that I'm welcoming. If I have a vision, I am a premium coach. Now, if I'm talking with one of my actually anyone in the world, but with the two of you on the call, I could say, okay, here's a vision. I might even fill in some blanks. A premium coach that is serving these kinds of clients and creating this kind of impact in the world. I'd love some feedback. How do you think I might be getting in the way of that? And that feedback may cover the clothes I'm wearing, the tone of voice. There's a shakiness that you see with me when I start talking about certain topics, and wow, how beneficial if I have a clear vision of the person I'm committed to being in the world. Now I'm also, the behavior that might come from that is now my feedback is a bit more surgical. Like, great, that's going to be feedback that's going to help me get there faster. I want to move to a conversation that we get to have a lot with people, especially with potential clients. I don't blame them for, at first, thinking about how much they want to pay us for the time. And that's one conversation. Time is valuable. But we have found it to be so much more resourceful to say, this is not a conversation about time. This is a conversation about value. And I notice that a coach that's commodifying their practice generally will be negotiating on price of time. And I believe it underserves the coach and the client to do that. And so talk, if you could, about the shift for, even if you're in an intake call with a potential client and they're thinking, well, how much is this per hour? Anchoring it into value. What is the value potentially that we now get to anchor the money conversation into? Instead of time, what's different value that's created from a premium coach?
As you ask that question, I'm thinking about those that might be listening who even one step before that, depending on actually how you see what you create is connected to this conversation. So I'm just thinking when I was in the early days of my coach training, a lot of what was being developed was coaching skill. Again, not the skill of the value you're creating and that this could be a business. So if there are people listening that are, I love our work because we're like, no judgment. Like wherever you are, you are. If you would love to be doing the work that you're doing as a career, I think one of the first parts is to actually anchor into the value of who you are and what you get to create with your client. Because I think that is a gap that I notice, and that's in our professional industry. So there are so many great coach schools out there, and a lot of them coach on coaching ability. And so the conversation about even how to get to a place where you could actually actually have rates that could create a sustainable life for you is often a void. And so I'm not saying so many great schools I've trained, we've all been able to benefit from different schools. I'm just more thinking about the person today that is wondering what their gap is and how this could happen. I think it's first really anchoring into the value that you are with the skills that you have. Let's talk about how you actually then create business from it. Uh, and I would just say my last point on that would be actually then seeing with a client in front of on a call, the conversation around what is something worth for a client to go after and what is the value of that. And again, if you're kind of playing small right now and what you're offering is, oh, like let's have a call, let's kind of see, let's do the wheel of life. Like that's what I used to do. No problem. Okay, like let's get your physical health better, right? Like it's like, okay, and so how much will that cost to work with you, right? And it's like, well, if you're gonna tell me to go to the gym 5 days a week and have my macro, like, I don't know that I will pay more than that. And I just think that there is sense of like, hey, sitting with someone and actually expanding what they could imagine for their life and inviting like, if that happened for you, what would be that worth that? I think that that's such a different conversation. And I wished I'd had that almost 15 years ago when I started this, like that way of seeing both myself and the value that I create and what happens with clients. So I want to offer that for those that are listening that are wondering maybe how to close a gap from where they are now, potentially as a solopreneur to actually what they would love to experience in this kind of work.
Yeah, I would echo that for sure too. I think we even teach, Joseph, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And it's too, because it's been a minute for me, but I think we even teach like if you get a no, chances are you haven't helped them paint a picture of a vision that is actually worth investing your rate into. And so that which sometimes can change the narrative of like, oh gosh, they don't think I'm worth it. And it's like, no, they don't think their vision is worth that yet. And so, for example, I was talking to one person and we were having a conversation around rates. And part of her vision was to speak more professionally. And I'm like, okay, great. What do you charge for your speaking? Which, by the way, I know that we're already going to expand that. But even at the rate that she had already been charging, I'm like, if our work helps you find two more speaking gigs over the next 6 months, it more than pays for the coaching. And so I could literally see the light bulb go off in her head of like, oh, yeah, she had not connected the value of what it is we would be working towards to the investment that she would make. And so it's almost like, how can you show them that uh, the ROI, whether it is ROI or literally the intrinsic value they have in maybe being healthier or having more confidence or whatever the case may be, we sometimes have to help them connect those dots because they are disconnected from it. So that might even be a skills gap for you if you're listening. If you struggle to tie things to ROI or coming up with a more tangible value creation tied to the vision, then that could be a gap for you that you can start to close.
Well, and my mind goes with that, Kristen, actually, sure, Shauna, yours as well, which is so helpful, is if you're noticing a gap in the building of a practice, it may be a really helpful mirror for your own life. So if you're noticing that you are trading your time for money, that where else is that showing up in your life where you're thinking about everything as a 1-to-1 ratio? Whereas your time, your life, your experience, your wisdom, your risk, your all of that is worth far more than the minutes spent with that thing or the dollar spent on that thing. And I also think about if you are getting a series of no's during your discovery calls or intake calls, whatever you call them, and it's likely because they don't have a clear, measurable, compelling vision that would be worth the investment. Where might that be true in your life, that you're not actually connected to a vision for your own life that is worth some sizable investments and risks for you? What a great notice for yourself to say, wow, I get to go play with that as well. And then I'm going to be far more equipped to guide other people into that same exploration. Because I know it feels like when I find that metal detector goes off, like, that's the thing. That's it. That's worth doing something surprising. That's worth doing something out of the ordinary.
Well, Joseph, just today I was actually speaking with a coach who's looking to build their coaching practice. And one of the things that this person said is, I don't want to build this like I've built other businesses in my life. And so this person brought me a strategy for the business. And so as I poked around in it, what we found is, oh, this is a very similar strategy that you used to use that created a result you don't want to create anymore. And so even in our conversation at the end of it, he's like, you just saved me. We ended up finding a new path, a new strategy that is more connected to who he's becoming. And at the end of the call, he's like, you just saved me, 10% on every intake call that I have next. Right. It's just like the ROI was direct. What he actually wanted to become as a business owner got changed. And I mean, that happened in a, 20-minute call today. So again, it's like this opportunity that we have to invite people to think beyond what they realize even could be possible, and the return of investment that has so specifically to their life, to their finances, to their well-being, to so many areas, their relationships.
Mm-hmm. That's so great. We could explore 9 other mindsets, and we probably will down the road, but this is a great first step, hopefully, for our listeners to begin to compare and contrast how they're thinking about their practice and the impact they want to make in the world, and what might be an upgrade. What's the next level of the video game for them? So with the couple of moments we have left in this conversation, I'd love to open the floor for any last encouragement. We've got listeners out there who, some of them are probably really frustrated with where their practice is at right now, financially, the clients that they're serving, the stress. Maybe they're serving 30 people and it's just so much. Any last notes of encouragement that you can give to any of our listeners today?
The first thing that I think about is you don't need to go through this alone. So if right now you are looking to hit that next level for this to actually be a career for you that's sustainable, who could you partner with? Who could you talk to? Who is someone in your network that you could sit down and say, hey, I think I have a gap looking at my rates, or I think I don't know how to create a budget, or hey, these are the rates I've been selling and this is the outcomes I'm creating. Like, what might I be missing here? And that could be a mentor, that could be a coach, that could just be a trusted other person in your life, so that you get to see, like we're talking about today, potentially something that you're not seeing yet for yourself, just like what you hope to do in the life of your clients.
Yeah, that's good. I think something, Joseph, you shared earlier in this conversation around uh, something along the lines of like, if I just had this skill, then I could ask for higher rates. If I could just, be in this room, then I'll have the clients that I want. So that mentality I see a lot. And I'm guessing you even see that in your clients. If you're listening, of if I could just hang on to this one thing, then I'll be successful. And you know that there's always a next thing. And so my encouragement is to take a swing and risk pitching a higher rate. Throw out a number that scares you. Jump into a room that you don't feel like you belong in, because the reality is you've got to start somewhere. And so if you don't ever pitch that first higher rate, then you're never going to receive a higher rate. So just even taking that first scared step and having the courage to do it anyway is what will not only unlock a next level for you, but you will be amazed at what it unlocks and how you coach your clients when you're willing to take the risks yourself.
Thank you both so much. Thank you for your time. It's worth honoring the two of you. Based on statistics, you're among the highest paid coaches in the world, based on metrics alone. So this time is valuable, even if we're just talking about time for money. You've given your time, not just for this conversation, but for all of the people listening. So thank you, Shauna. Thank you, Kristin, for joining the On Coaching conversation.
Thanks, Joseph.
You've been listening to On Coaching, a podcast by the Meta Performance Institute, where we dissect the craft, the calling, and the future of coaching at the highest levels. By listening to this episode, you're helping us build a global network of meta-performing coaches who do more than help leaders succeed. They help leaders transform, starting with themselves. If today's conversation challenged you, stirred something in you, or brought new energy into your world, good. You're right where you belong. To learn more, or explore our certification, or partner with our team, visit mp.institute and join us as we lead humanity into going beyond high performance.